Here we are.
Here we are. Once again, a redneck and an immigrant walk into a bar, and what happens?
We're about to see. Episode 9, official.
9.
9, as Germans would say.
Okay, I'm not sure how that's applicable.
There is a story.
9.
There is a story.
Yeah,
So, want to thank, on behalf of Redneck and an Immigrant, to thank all our listeners, and gratitude to everyone who logs in and listens to us.
Both of them.
all two of them.
Which is fine.
No, actually, our audience is growing, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Hopefully you'll find this episode just as entertaining and pleasant on your ears and eyes, clearly.
So that leads us right into, I was thinking about episode 8, we went into some deep water and we delved into a, shall I say, political.
Did we?
Yeah, it was somewhat political, which is not really our thing. And we don't pretend to be that.
Well, I think we're both smart enough to talk about many subjects. I think with your wise guidance, we're trying to stay away from the topics that are already all over the media, all over the news. So rather than add to it and add our perspective, what we're trying to do is be, I think your words were, off the beaten path.
Right.
So,
well, I mean, it was very topical at the moment, so we felt like we needed to address it.
Was it Charlie Kirk's murder?
I think it was.
Yep.
But this one, I read an interesting quote, and I thought, this is thought-provoking. And I'll tell you, and the quote comes from someone near and dear to both of our hearts, John Lennon, who may or may not have any credibility regarding this quote, but what he said was, and it was extremely controversial, and consider it in the context of the time period, the 60s.
Yep.
Okay, a whole nother environment then. But he said, in regard to religion, that it would shrink and disappear, and that he wouldn't debate that. And he said, regarding the Beatles, we're more popular than Jesus right now. The backlash was
burning records,
was immediate.
Yeah.
As you might know. But it's thought-provoking on what he said about religion. I don't know if he's talking about Christianity exclusively, or is he just throwing a blanket across Buddhism and every other religion in the world. But he's English, so maybe it was Christian centric, but it would shrink and die. Wither on the vine is another way to put it. Those aren't his words.
Yeah.
But in a way, it has manifested itself, if you look at the stats, that Christianity, American Christianity, has declined.
Okay.
Through the recent decades. I even have some stats here.
Really?
That I thought, based on what? I knew you were going to say, based on what? Well, based on the statistics.
It's just for the record. So there is a saying, I forget who said that, there are lies, then lies, and there are statistics.
Yes.
So I would love to hear your statistics.
I just was intrigued by this. 62% of Americans identify as a Christian.
Okay.
Still a big number, but...
Not as big as I would have thought.
150 years ago?
Would have been 90%?
Well, 99%?
Okay.
Sure. And it's dropped to 62. 30%, that's a third of our population, is unaffiliated.
The word unaffiliated throws me off a little bit. Just to clarify, what means unaffiliated? That means they believe into higher being, but not through any certain mechanism like Christianity, Judaism, Muslim, Buddhism.
Well, you have atheists, you have agnostics.
Those are unaffiliated?
Those are all involved in the 30%.
Interesting.
Okay. But now you've opened this can of worms. We have Christianity.
Yep.
And the criteria for Christianity is well defined.
Yeah.
You must follow Jesus.
Believe Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior.
Exactly. Then we have people who claim to be spiritual. That is an entirely different mindset.
Just to clarify, are they falling into unaffiliated category or not?
Yes.
Okay.
No. Yes, because they don't claim to be Christians, but they claim to be spiritual. They believe in a higher power, not necessarily defined.
So, in theory, so-called pagan religion, let's say, believing into sun.
They're spiritual.
They're spiritual. Okay, yes. Understood.
They're spiritual. So, in everybody, spiritual, 70% of people believe in heaven and hell.
So, well, it's good that 70% believe into afterlife.
Afterlife.
Which means atheists, I'm not a book smart in definitions, but those are the ones that think that we have a life and then we turn into dust.
I think so.
Agnostics, they believe into something higher, but they don't know what it is.
They're non-committal.
Non-committal.
Yeah, and I get that. They're willing to dip a toe in the River Jordan, but not dive in.
There is something, I just don't know what it is. It's like, probably you and I would be agnostics about life on different planets, right?
Sure.
It's mathematically, we cannot prove there is or there isn't, but there might be. So that might be the agnostic's point of view on religion.
Yeah, well, I think that we have to make that the divide between a spiritual person and a Christian.
Of course.
Is definitely.
Can a spiritual person consider him or herself Christian? Probably not, right? Then they're Christians.
Well, they're not mutually exclusive. You can be both. If you're a Christian, you are spiritual.
Of course, by definition.
Okay. All crows are blackbirds, but not all blackbirds are crows.
What if it's a white crow?
There are no white crows. What is going on? Now, also, it's interesting that and this may be sticky right here to bring this involved, but political affiliations tie into these stats. For example, liberals, 51% of liberals, and this is interesting, claim no religion.
No religion.
No religion.
Interesting.
Even though, let's take one aspect of culture. Black folks are highly democratic, but they're also highly Christian.
Okay. So
that skews it.
Now counter that with conservative folks. What's the percentage there on religion?
Do I have a stat on that?
I would say 75%, but I'm pulling that data out of my skirt.
Well, I guess so. I don't have that one. But if you want to continue to fold in today's headlines together, immigrants.
Yep.
And you know something about this.
I've heard.
Tend to be highly both spiritual and Christian.
That is true.
In general.
Yeah.
I mean, is that counterintuitive?
No, it's not. So a very short anecdote about crows. White crow. No. It just there is an English saying about being a black sheep of the family.
Sure.
The logical translation to Russian being the white crow of there is a same saying.
I've never heard that.
Hence
you
Russian.
You have to be from Russia to have heard
from
that.
Russian-speaking country.
Okay.
Because we don't have a black sheep, because black sheep actually exist.
Sure they do.
But white crows you don't see often.
They don't.
Albino crow flying around.
Right.
Okay, so back to the topic. Very interesting, Jim, and I'm very proud of you being prepared.
Well,
you see.
Yeah,
Jim, prepared.
I knew you were going to ask.
Usual, I'm prepared.
Where are you getting this information?
Listen, 80% of statistics is made up. Did you see the double entendre?
Yeah,
Do you understand what double entendre means?
I don't speak Russian.
So let's start with your last topic. Immigrants being primarily religious and Christian. I believe that, right? I think if we, and maybe broad brushes. So where do we have major immigrant cohorts from, right? We have Latin America,
big one.
Maybe India, maybe China, and let's say Eastern Europe. Would that maybe they may not be equal, but if you had to do a segmentation of a larger population, of course there are other places as well. And
some of those cultures are not Christian.
We're getting to that, right? So Indian culture, even though traditionally they're Hindus, but there is a large population of Christians in India, usually southern states, and there is a Muslim population there as well. I have a very close friend of mine from India. He's Muslim gentleman, and so that's India. But I would say majority of Indian folks will be Hindus. Majority doesn't mean they're all right. Chinese folks primarily. Or I'm undermining because there is also larger Korean and Vietnamese, so kind of Far East Asia. Chinese folks will probably be either, I probably should not be making these judgment calls because I'm not that knowledgeable. Either Buddhist, agnostic, maybe some Christians.
Are we getting a lot of Chinese immigrants?
Yeah, I mean, especially work visas. Yeah, I mean, how many Chinese restaurants do you have in the 5 mile radius?
I don't think that's what's bringing them here.
No, I understand. I'm just saying that's an indicator. How do you determine indices of people being here?
Well, let's look at the larger numbers. Most immigrants
are
coming from where?
Latin America. Well, I was leaving the biggest for last.
Catholic.
Right. So then you have Eastern Europe. Right? Okay. Russia, Ukraine, all the former Soviet Union, Poland, Bulgaria, Hungary, former Yugoslavian countries. I can name all of them, but mostly Christian folks. Could be divided between Orthodoxy, Christianity, and maybe more Baptists. Smaller population, but still. And then the largest, I hate to use the word chunk, but largest number of immigrants who come to the United States are Latin America, right? Mm-hmm. Majority of them are Christians. Overwhelming majority of them are probably Catholics.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know if those numbers are the ones who are swaying the shift from maybe religion being less of a prevalence in American society, because we need to specify American, Western, and the world. So back to your John Lennon's quote, he probably was talking either about UK and or US or maybe Western culture. I don't think he was talking about Armenia or Pakistan or Russia, right? He was probably talking about the Western world, and maybe some of the indicators following the 60s were actually, made his quote somewhat accurate.
Well, let's stop right there. Now, during this time, I'm not sure exactly when that quote was made. It was probably 65.
Probably. I remember reading about that and them burning their records in Detroit and all over.
That's right. And in 65, there was, we were having cultural unrest in this country and also in England. I mean, Vietnam was starting to really happen. And I get that, and we're having cultural unrest now. But so the trend that first intrigued me is that the decline, the withering on the vine of American Christianity has for now plateaued. As a matter of fact, there's a couple of indicators of
moving up,
of an uptick.
Yeah.
I think that we have to really look at Gen Z. Mm-hmm. The younger people who are very unaffected, especially by Christianity, but aspects of Gen Z is kind of circling back around. And then the older contingent that live in this country that have been carrying the flag of American religion are dying off. So you could see why that would cause an imbalance. But if there's a resurgence, why is there a resurgence?
Interesting. Because America, and I often refer to it, I could be wrong, you're the redneck, I'm the immigrant. I said that America is the second country that was founded on biblical principles after the original Israel. Right? That's why we have 10 commandments in our Supreme Court. That's why, it was our founding fathers. Yeah. There were a lot of religious principles that went into our Constitution, that went into our, amendments to some of the constitutional articles, right? But it was more faith-based, right? And let's call it spade a spade. It was Christian-based.
Yes.
Well, you could argue Judeo-Christian because, some of the Bible we call it Old Testament. Jewish folks call that, first 5 books Torah, but it's their holy book. And then Jesus comes in and he fulfills the Old Testament, and then we have the Evangel, the New Testament, right? So America being found on religious principles, the religion was always interwoven into the backbone and the fiber of this country, right? And 1960s, you mentioned about I think you said civil movement, but it also was the time of the hippie movement, the freedom, a lot of the kind of the free thinking. And I think, and I could be dead wrong, by the way, a lot of these are assumptions other than some of the Jim's numbers as preparation. I think there was a trend, and may still be, that if you're smart, meaning science, smart, then religion is kind of like it's a kind of atavism. It's like the thing of the it's for those folks, right? Mm-hmm. But I think, and this is again Alex talking, smarter you get, you realize that there are a lot of actually commonalities, and not necessarily. I have a very smart friend who is an atheist, absolutely, positively atheist. However, he's smart enough to say this: I will never argue with you about the existence of God, because he said you cannot prove. He's talking to me. I'm pointing my finger to you as being me, right? Alex, you can prove that God exists, but I also cannot prove that He does not. He says, I don't believe in God, which, I respect him, not for his atheism, but I respect him that being smart enough to argue that God doesn't exist. He says, I cannot prove it mathematically, right? And it's but the trend, to your key point, right? Why, if the indices around, religion becoming more popular is a wrong word, but there are more people find themselves going to church rather than Christmas and Easter, right? What's behind that? Like, you and I have both been in our North Point church. Our kids grew up there. Andy Stanley. I don't know if a lot of immigrants, I could be wrong, but if you look at 100% of people of North Point Ministries following Andy Stanley's and all his pastors and senior pastors messages are, majority of them are red-blooded Americans. So, and the church has been growing in size. Or another big one in Texas, Joel Osteen. Right? And let's not go into what people think or how they're messaging. That all aside, their churches are growing leaps and bounds, right? So it's a very good question. This is the moment where Alan Hunt, our good friend, Dr. Alan Hunt, if you haven't heard of him, do research. Great man, holy man. May have been overstating. Great books. Alan.
I think you could say that.
he's PhD from Yale. We don't know many people like him.
We should have him here.
We should have him. We should continue this discussion sometime with him.
Maybe we can do that. But I think I'm interested in the generational differences. Young people tend to be more worldview liberal, meaning let's feed the hungry, let's shoe the shoeless, etc., and be altruistic. And then as they get older, they become more conservative in that aspect. Didn't Churchill said that if you're young and you're not liberal, you don't have a brain. If you're old and not conservative, you don't have a heart. No, the other way around. It's the other way around. And that's exactly true. Yeah. And it's the same thing now that I think Gen Zers are so unaffected as all previous, teenage generations have been unaffected by certain things. And then as they mature and marry and have kids, then they take on a completely different mindset regarding both politics and religion. And right now, the post-40 crowd are the people that are in the churches.
Okay.
And the churches have made a concerted effort to capture the youth movement and give them the music they want to hear.
Yep.
Water down the dress code.
Yep.
Come in your pajamas.
For sure.
Just show up.
Just show up.
You don't have to put a dress on. Just put your pajamas on and come.
Yeah.
We're fine. Just get in here.
Right.
Can I get that? They're softening their stance on homosexuality.
Yeah.
You know, because they figured out very quickly when they drew the line that these people are not gonna make the cut. They were meeting resistance.
Well, here,
from young people.
if I may, first apologies for interrupting you, but on homosexuality, as an example, I think the whole New Testament is I don't know if the word conflict is the right one or not. It's a conflict between truth, absolute truth, and absolute grace, right? On one hand, Jesus can say something along the lines, if you think about it, you already sinned. That's absolute truth. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, he may see a woman who has a bad behavior and reputation and says, go home and don't do this ever again. Right? Or a person who's on the cross next to him dying, he had a really bad life, but he says, okay, you will make it to kingdom of heaven. Right? So that whole conflict around truth and grace, I think it also shows itself up in a kind of if I may call it, branches of Christianity, right? Some branches are far more strict, if I may use the word orthodox, but not in a word of orthodoxy.
Well,
but
orthodox means correct.
I know. But I was using more as not as a...
I'm an orthodox podcaster.
So,
at least that's what
and some
think.
are very, very much liberal, and everything is accepted. Yeah. And I think that the truth and grace around accepting, let's say, divorce, homosexuality, abortion, and other things that in some branches could be absolutely positively unacceptable, in some maybe more so. But going back to your generations comment, one thing about North Point Church, if you want sponsorship, it will be awesome. Andy Stanley often says, "Don't bring if you're coming here first time, don't bring your kids, because if you bring your kids, you will not leave the church." And it's true. Our kids grew up there since pre-K, all the way to high school, and now in college. And my son is involved with North Point as a leader, and also he's at Young Life this morning at 6 o'clock. I had to wake him up for his Young Life, also Christian organization. They've built this environment that really, first and foremost is following the Christ, but also in such environment that kids want to be there, which is awesome, right? In addition to learning and understanding Christianity, religion, right? And you said interesting thing also about the kids now, they want to do good for the world. Well, some of the principles, and I'm not mentioning other religions, Hinduism or Muslim, Islam or Judaism, I just don't know. It doesn't mean that only Christians, but we know very well that Christian organizations are the one. Red Cross, there is a reason why it's a cross. It's not a red square or red circle. It's a cross because it's based on, helping others,
I'm
right?
not sure I made that association.
I'm not either, but why would there be otherwise?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's a red plus.
It's a mathematical sign, plus you.
Yeah, plus you. But no, I think that an uptick in participation in American religion is a positive thing.
Absolutely.
Okay. People searching for, a lot of people, I heard a guy talking about this beautiful church in his town, and he just goes there alone, not on a Sunday, just on a Wednesday or something, and sits in there for, an opportunity to perhaps meditate or just reflect or be someplace and disconnect from the world. And when he was talking about that, I thought, that sounds attractive to me.
Jim, I will confess to you, I've said a lot about North Point. However, once every 2-3 weeks, there is no timing. It's whenever I feel like. I go typically to a Catholic church. There are about 3 churches, within 10 mile radius from where we live. And usually they have either, the big But usually they have a small chapel, right? I go there, I see the crosses, I see the icons, I have the Bible with me, and I sit there, I do my, you call it meditation, I will call it prayer.
What's the difference?
Uh,
It's meditative to pray, and
you remember in one of our very first conversations on the camera, I said, why do we pray? Right? Because God already knows everything what we want and we don't want, and what we desire and we would desire not. Why would we pray? I think, by the way, I'm playing your tune right here, right now. Prayer, what it does, it teaches us to be able to talk to ourselves rather than just living in a vacuum of continuous events of life. So we sort of meditate by connecting with God or connecting with our inner God, because Holy Spirit lives in us, and by praying we we shut down the external world or outside, and we connect with inside.
Disconnect outside.
Yep. Yeah, shut down was a bad word. Disconnect, better word, right? And connect from within inside.
Yeah.
It's not like by saying, hey, God, I really want that new car. God will say, oh, I had no idea you want a new car, right?
Yeah.
No, he already knows all our thoughts and what live in our head. So back to your point, I go to church by myself, sometimes with kids, both or one. Now one is in college. And we go there. We spend not too long, 15, 20, 30 minutes. I do that. I was there last week. I was there the week before. And I find it very positively fulfilling for me. It's just a thing that I do. So that gentleman, a friend of yours who does that, I totally understand. I was thinking you're talking about me, and you're going to turn it to me.
No.
But when you said meditating, I knew it wasn't.
No, it wasn't you.
Yeah.
No, I get it, and I think it's a good thing. And I think the reinforcement of the general Christian values in regard to our country and what's going on, things like the mindset of things right now, once again, is a good thing. So, in general, I think that if there is an uptick in a return to the church, although I don't think that it's a huge uptick, according to what I was reading.
Okay.
But there are trends. At least it's not eroding.
Continues to erode. Because in Western Europe there is an erosion that has happened in Germany, which was very religious couple hundred years ago. In France, in Anglican Church, in Great Britain, there is an erosion. Now, I don't know, maybe their numbers are also up. I don't know, but there's just general, there is and you look at good old Europe, this beautiful churches that have been built centuries ago. There is, nowhere near compared to, let's say, South America, right? Compared to country I come from, Armenia, which is 100% Christian, for centuries and centuries and centuries. First Christian country in the world, year 301, little plug for Armenia there. But coming back to your point around a religious uptick, right? If we attribute some of it to the immigration population, some, not all, obviously, right? By going to, let's say, I use the North Point because that's a church I know, right? By going there, this is Alex talking completely out of his skirt, but less than 10% are immigrants there. Just looking at people, they look like red-blooded Americans, right?
Well, do you think they look at you and say, "Hey, that guy's not from here"?
I don't know. You should ask them.
As soon as you begin to speak, they're like,
"That's why I'm silent."
This guy's not from here. Okay.
You don't belong here, boy.
Yeah. So, but
not everyone is like you, Jim. People are welcoming. Most of the people in this country are welcoming.
And that's a good thing.
That's a great thing. That's what made America. True. Listen, why America is the best country in the world.
Not perfect.
Not perfect, but the best country in the world. Why? Because people who live here, not first and foremost, the values of this country first and foremost, and people who live here, and then people who come here, who really want for this to be successful in their lives. Majority, not all. Obviously, I'm sure there's some bad people who live here. There's some bad people who come here, but overwhelming majority of people who come here, they want to, to live the American dream. And people from south of the border, from Mexico all the way down to Chile and Argentina. I was trying to cover all the Latin America and South America, right? Who come here. Majority of them are Christian Catholics.
Well, do you think that the Muslim, which is a lot of people we're talking about, covers a lot of ground?
Was it 1.5 billion or 2 billion people worldwide?
If we had a Muslim guest, which would be fantastic.
Yep.
Because I have some questions. Do you think that that the Muslim foundation of faith there's a proliferation, or they're also suffering from erosion, or do you think it's stronger than ever, or what would they say?
Here I'll be speculating. It's probably, this is guess. I'm thinking it's probably plateaued.
Really?
Plateaued meaning I don't think there are new. So here's the thing, right? There is an organic growth, right? People are being born, right?
Lots.
Right. So you and your beautiful wife have 2 beautiful children. You and your wife happen to be Christians, and your 2 children happen to be Christians in a Christian family. So that's an organic addition to people. But you haven't converted 10 people from other religion into your religion. Right? That's what I meant by plateauing, meaning there is probably organic, but adding others probably, I would imagine, Judaism is probably plateaued, Muslim. Again, I'm speculating completely. About having a guest, as I said, I have a very good friend of mine who's a Muslim guy. He's following a religion very strictly, but he would be, I would ask him, but he would be very open to talk, and I respect him tremendously. And it will be a really interesting conversation to hear, him talk about the topic and answer some questions, because I know, he has a beautiful family. He's a great guy, and his values are very much, I would say, not that different through different religions, I understand, but from Christian values, right? Do good, love your neighbor. Right? They may not have the, exactly biblical sayings the way, but
similar.
It's very similar.
Similar,
yeah.
Well, let's put a bookmark here.
Why don't we?
And we may pick this up right where
we definitely need to. I think we kind of we glanced through the surface of this.
Such a huge, overwhelming.
But think about if we have Alan in one of the conversations. If Alan, if you find this conversation interesting, or find that we're just complete idiots, which I'm sure you will,
he would have to see it first.
Well, I will entice him with this. You should say, please watch. And I'll ask a friend of mine if he would be interested in having a conversation about Islam and Muslim religion, because he's also very smart. I know he's my friend, but he happens to be my friend and smart.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm willing. Okay.
All right.
All right. Next time.
Thank you all.